Welcome back to the NAPE YouTube site. Today I'm going to tell you about the Schiller Lectures and why we have them each year. So I'll be answering questions such as, who was Christian Schiller HMI? Why was he so important to primary education? But first, let us talk about this year's lecture taking place in Plumstead, London, at Bannockburn Primary School in Church Manor Way, after school on Thursday the 3rd of April at 5 o'clock. The lecture by NAPE's guest speaker this year is by Charlotte Hacking. The talk is called The Balancing Act, and that is after the recently published book of the same name. Now, Charlotte Hacking and Dominic Wise's publication has been described as groundbreaking because it describes lessons that are inspired by real books and argues why the new approach is more effective than narrow phonics approaches. They argue that education policies need to be improved to encompass a much wider range of reading material. This assertion is based on a unique analysis of research evidence from experimental trials, which then generated a new theory and model called the double helix of reading and writing. So come along and find out more. Who was Christian Schiller? His career spanned 55 years, crucially working as an HMI, Her Majesty's Inspector. His thinking is captured in a book published by NAPE. This thinking was conveyed to teachers and senior leaders over many years. However, he never published one book. Now, John Coe, our co-founder of NAPE, spent a year at the Institute in London with Christian Schiller when he was head teacher. John never forgot how that influenced his future teaching. So each year we celebrate, asking a leader in his or her field of primary education to share their knowledge and understandings. Dr. Neil Hawkes, famed author of a number of books on values education, was guest lecturer and provided an introduction to the talk by explaining why he thinks Schiller is so important.
I felt, wow, little Neil is giving the Schiller lecture. Now, all my career, well, most of it, I've been in awe of people who have given the Schiller lecture, starting with Sir Peter Newsom in 1977. And then last year we had the marvellous lecture that I listened to the other night from Nancy. Absolutely incredible journey that we've been on over the years with NAPE. And Christian Schiller, well, I've had his book at home in my study, and I had another copy that I used to keep at school too. And it was a book that I would dip in and out of to talk with teachers about. So if you haven't got your copy, do get one, it's really good. He said lots of things. This one, for instance, which I've used so often, and much of Schiller I use and forget that it was his words originally. But I've always said that primary education isn't a preparation for anything else. It's a stage in its own right. And Schiller was the first one to say that. And he then went on to say that really we should be looking at what are the activities, the experiences that we are going to give to children. It isn't about standards of attainment, which of course is a lot about English education now, attainment, ticking boxes, being inspected, and all that sort of thing. Schiller was an inspector, but he didn't conceive of inspection in the way that it's done now.
NAPE Secretary Robert Young in 2022's Christian Schiller lecture provided an overview of Christian's long and distinguished life in education before introducing Nancy Stewart.
Initially he was an HMI working in Liverpool in the 20s. He then went on to Worcestershire, finally to London, and where he retired as an HMI in 1955. And on his retirement, he didn't stop working. He continued to lecture a great deal. He ran his own courses, mainly at the London Institute of Education. And in fact, I had the opportunity of meeting him.
Nancy Stewart is a leading expert in her field on early years education. Nancy then followed this up with a discovery of Christian's observation of young children in his informal writings.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I am deeply honoured to have been invited to deliver the Christian Schiller Lecture this year from the perspective of early years, and also really grateful for the spur that it gave me to engage with his writings. Schiller's insights into the nature of learning for very young children sparked many moments of recognizing a fellow devotee of observing children and marveling at their wonderful capacities. With a flash of seeing history repeating itself, I read his account of how his young grandchild was using language in original ways to express his own thinking. His account was when he had been playing on the floor with his grandson, building some bricks, and the grandson was able to see the top of his head from an unusual perspective. He wasn't used to seeing up there. And he said, "How come your hair thin on top?"
We now end this video with Mick Waters, NAPE's president. Here he's speaking in 2024's Schiller Lecture and explains his interpretation of what Christian Schiller meant to him.
What Schiller was all about was, if you read some of his papers which record his speeches, what he was about was connecting with children, seeing where children are, and musing on the way in which education ought to unfold for them. And what's true is that childhood is still childhood, regardless of how education has moved forward. And that's a real challenge for us, I think, at the moment, because I'm wondering whether childhood is reaching its end. So, in the words of Christian Schiller, let's make the difference that we can make to the children that we've got now. Let's help children to be the architects of the future, and let's do good things for them. Thanks for listening to me.
So don't forget to book for this year's Schiller Lecture, which has been held in London, and details and the poster can be found on our website, and book with Robert Young, General Secretary, at rmyoung1942@yahoo.co.uk or through the National Office. Thank you.